So with me now is Andy from Black Veil Brides. How are you, man?
I'm doing good. Having a good day so far. Talking about myself is always, I guess, always,
You can
always
never
fun
get
and
bored of
something to
that,
do,
right?
right? Yeah, there you go. There you go. Let's do some more of it.
Yeah. So my first question is, how much of a dick punch was this album to put out during a global pandemic?
Well, we had kind of interesting timing because we put together two songs at the end of 2019 that we released kind of as a single, and then we were going to do a tour and then intermittently record this album that ultimately became The Phantom Tomorrow between legs of this tour. And so ultimately we were kind of in a unique position because we had plans to go into the studio and we were going to make a record, but we were going to make it parsed out over the course of a year. And as soon as everything kind of got shut down, we just turned our focus on to, okay, well, let's just make this record in earnest. And so we were able to spend the time doing that. The bizarre part of it has come from the actual release, because we finished the record, 8-9 months before it came out. And then, it just feels weird to be touring a record that we finished 2 years ago almost. You know what I mean? Like it sort of feels very old school in that way, where you'd have like a Bon Jovi record that they tour for like 8 years and have 12 singles off of or whatever. Like, so for us, generally it's like a couple videos, couple songs, go back, make a record, do a bunch of touring, rinse, repeat. So it's interesting to just be living in this record for now a number of years. It's a unique thing.
It's one of those. Did you go out when it was released straight out on tour, or did you let it sit for a while because of the restrictions?
Well, so we had kind of, I guess, a good news, bad news thing there, where we originally wanted to release the record in May of 2021. And basically, I was told pretty quickly, there's no way that records can be produced. There's no way that merchandise will be produced. There's no way that we could properly release this because the plants that make these things, it's not available. Yeah. So do you want to have two releases with the album where there's a digital only and then the other one, or, would you rather have everything? And because this record had a comic book tie-in and all these other things, and because knowing like we're a very kind of visual band, I'm a big action figure comic book fan, like, and our fans like that kind of stuff, it felt like it wouldn't be very true to who we are if we released a record digitally only and then months and months later you had this other thing. It would be one thing if it were singles or something else, but this album that we had worked on felt like it needed to come out as a whole piece. Yeah. And so we ended up, it got pushed back to the fall, and that it just so happened that we ended up having a rescheduled tour that was supposed to happen in 2020 that happened the exact same time. So that part was actually pretty normal. We had a record come out while we were on tour, like you might any other time.
Well, that's good, because otherwise it would the album would just sit with fans for a while, and then you'd have to rejig a set list because people would find a favorite on the album that they wouldn't have heard if you were just touring out.
Well, the one bizarre thing was, we put out 4 music videos before the record came out. So there were 4 songs that people knew. And so when this record came out, we could play those songs in the set, and it didn't feel like, oh, this is a brand new song, time to go to the bathroom. It was, people knew them right away and were singing them with us.
Yeah. Was the track listing on this album really important?
Well, I think for every record it is. I know it's kind of an old school thing in today's playlisting world, but for me, especially when you have a concept record.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, because the singles are like up and then they're quite mid-tier and they're bottom. Yeah. And obviously with Born Again, which is track 3,
yeah,
it just kind of, it jumped around, and I was like, I quite like listen to it from start to finish, but it would have been, obviously video concepts of that would have just been really weird.
Well, we've always been weird with that, because on Wretched and Divine, the song In the End was the lead single, and it's the last song on the record because it's in the end. I mean, it has to be. But like that was, I remember Universal at the time was hugely against us putting that song as the last song. And I was thinking like, well, you can't make In the End track 3. Like that doesn't make any sense. We have to do it this way.
Yeah. What song was the song that gave you the most shit to try and get right, to sound right, to fit with the vibe and record?
Actually, Born Again.
Okay.
It was a song that the music sat there for a long time, and it was, the bed of the music was so cool and different than anything that we had done and we were working with the producer Eric Ron, and like that. Obviously, the chorus feels very Black Veil in terms of that major kind of uplifting thing, but the riff in the intro is a much more kind of like beefy riff. Obviously we're known for very intricate guitar leads and everything, and so having that kind of chunky riff at the top, we really wanted to do something right with it. And that song went through a bunch of different iterations because I knew the responsibility of trying to nail it from a vocal perspective and a lyric perspective. How do you have this chorus that has this big, huge anthemic arena feel? And I tend to overwrite stuff. I'll make it too complicated and then I have to dial it back. So that one was really a process of how do I say exactly what I'm trying to say here and do it in a way that serves the song. And I think that's one of the great things about being in a band is that you learn from other people in the band in a lot of ways. Our drummer Cece, he always talks about, he's a shredder of a drummer. He can play anything. Yeah. He's got jazz training, he's marching band, all this stuff, but he plays what lays right for the song. And I've tried to kind of take those principles and apply them to lyrics and building out what fits the melody in a way that makes sense. And that can sometimes be a real bitch to get through, Yeah.
Well, Born Again is one of my favorites, but also the Wicked one. I just think that's just because it's heaviness, and it's kind of reminiscent of like really early Black Veil Brides as well. And I quite like.
Yeah, and that one came together really quickly because that's a very pissed off song. And I, as a writer, when it comes to my part of the songs, when I'm angry about something, I can write something in about 15 minutes usually. If I'm trying to be more contemplative, it takes a longer time. But if I'm pissed off, it comes out much more quickly.
Good to know. But also the first 30 seconds or 40 seconds of Shadow Rises, I think you doing a pure orchestral album as a band, like maybe Metallica's S&M would be fucking brilliant. I think you could.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something we've always wanted to do. Yeah, because when you've got somebody like Jinx in the band, it's just it's so lucky to have that element because he can play all those instruments. He's really, we're not going into a keyboard and making those sounds. That's somebody playing those instruments and building out those themes and taking the musical cues from other songs and building out these overtures. And it's for a band that is heavily cinematic in our style to have somebody who can score and has scored films like Jinx. It's just a huge benefit.
Definitely. So what's the set list looking like for your European tour? Because it's been 3 years, I think. Last time I spoke to you was like probably 2019 when you played Download.
Yeah, well, so yeah, the last time we played Download was 2018. The last time we did a proper European tour was 2015. And the last time that we did the European tour circuit or the festival circuit was 2011. So it's been a long time for us to come back and do a lot of these festivals, the Rock 'em Ring, Rock 'em Park, and then end with Download. And I think the set list is representative of that. We want to play stuff from every era of the band and play songs that, in the subsequent years since we've last played a lot of these places, we want to play stuff that maybe they've never heard before, but are the most recognizable songs in our catalog. So I will say this, if you're coming to a festival and expecting a band to play deep cuts in their set, it's kind of a foolish idea. So we're playing the Black Veil songs that you know and love.
That's what people want to see at a festival.
I think so. That's what I want to see at a festival.
Yeah. So is there plans to come back and do a proper UK tour? Is this kind of like feeling the waters of a post-COVID, European tour kind of thing? Or are you comfortable with the testing every day and the restrictions?
Yeah, I mean, since we've been touring so much in the States, we're pretty comfortable with the way that things roll. We're ready to take on whatever we have to. We want to tour the UK as soon as possible. I mean, obviously we have a very long-standing positive relationship with the UK audience. So I would say that there will be news coming soon on that. I think Download has always been a good launching pad for us to be able to talk about future plans. So that'll be coming very soon.
Happy days. Andy, thank you very much for the chat. I love the album. I think it's a great.
All right. Thanks so much, man. Appreciate you.
Cheers, Andy. Cheers. Bye.